Welcome back to Fluent Talk on English Easy. I'm Jade, and joining me today is the committed sustainability advocate, Noah.
It's great to be here, Jade. If you want to elevate your fluency with topics that actually matter to the modern world, you are absolutely in the right place.
That's right. Today, we are tackling a giant topic that affects every single person listening: the ethics of convenience, specifically the massive clash between fast fashion and genuine sustainable living.
And before we dive into the core conflict, make sure you subscribe to English Easy. Our goal is to make you fluent, and we post a new high-value conversation every single day at 6 a.m. Never miss a video. Jade, I have to open by saying this. Fast fashion is a moral disaster. It's built on planned obsolescence, exploiting both labor and the planet's finite resources. It is financially and ethically indefensible.
Planned obsolescence, Noah? That's a strong accusation. But for the average listener who needs affordable clothes, what exactly is the definition of fast fashion?
Fast fashion is a business model where new clothing designs move quickly from the catwalk to the store, encouraging consumers to buy high volumes of cheap, low-quality garments. Planned obsolescence is intentionally designing a product to have a short lifespan, forcing the consumer to replace it quickly.
I understand the ethical argument, but you cannot ignore the economic disparity. For someone struggling with a tight budget, the cheap price tag of fast fashion is not a choice. It is a necessity. We must address the issue of affordability.
Affordability is a justification for overconsumption. If you buy one durable, ethically sourced item, it will last 10 times longer than 5 cheaply made items. You are merely shifting the true cost, the externalized cost, onto the environment and the workers.
Externalized cost? Could you break down that term for our listeners?
The externalized cost is the negative impact of production that the company doesn't pay for. In this case, the pollution, the waste, and the low wages are costs that the society and the environment absorb, not the clothing brand itself.
That definition makes the moral hazard clear, but the problem is many people suffer from analysis paralysis when trying to go sustainable. They don't know where to start.
They should start with the capsule wardrobe concept. It is the ultimate antidote to overconsumption. You buy only a small, curated collection of versatile, high-quality items that never go out of style.
I love the capsule wardrobe idea. It's a great piece of actionable advice. Now, let's take this same ethical debate and apply it to something even bigger than clothes: food waste and the global logistics of our consumption habits.
That's a giant topic. We'll talk about why you should never throw out leftovers, the concept of best before anxiety, and the huge role of supply chain management in the next segment.
I love the capsule wardrobe idea. It's a great piece of actionable advice. Now, let's take this same ethical debate and apply it to something even bigger than clothes: food waste and the global logistics of our consumption habits.
That's a giant topic. We'll talk about why you should never throw out leftovers, the concept of best before anxiety, and the huge role of supply chain management in the next segment. The sheer scale of food waste globally is staggering. We are talking about billions of tons of perfectly edible food being thrown away. It's not just an ethical issue, it's an environmental tragedy contributing directly to our carbon footprint.
Most people only focus on the waste at home, but the biggest challenge is logistics and supply chain management. Huge amounts of food spoiled before they even reach the consumer because of inefficient cooling or transportation.
Logistics? Could you elaborate on what the role of logistics is in the supply chain for something like fresh produce or perishables?
Logistics involves the planning, execution, and control of the movement and storage of goods. The supply chain is the network that gets the product from the farmer to your fridge. For perishables, food that spoils quickly, any hiccup in that chain means massive waste.
But we, the consumers, are still major culprits. The phenomenon of best before anxiety means people throw out food prematurely because they misunderstand expiration labels.
Best before anxiety is a great term. The key thing to understand is that best before dates relate to quality, not safety. You can often safely consume items past that date, but consumers' anxiety leads to unnecessary food waste.
So the first hack is simple. Trust your senses, not just the label. The second is to embrace meal prepping and use your freezer aggressively. It immediately reduces the waste of perishables.
And on the business side, the solution lies in dynamic pricing and better inventory management, selling items nearing their best before date at a discount, which helps both the consumer and the environment.
The debate on food and clothing clearly shows that overconsumption is the root problem, driven by a lack of awareness about the externalized cost.
That is the perfect segue. Now, let's apply the same pressure to the concept of global citizenship. If we accept the externalized costs of our consumption, do we have a moral obligation to engage in ethical philanthropy?
That's a serious debate. We'll discuss effective altruism, the difference between charity and philanthropy, and whether every global citizen must contribute to social justice issues in the next segment.
That is the perfect segue. Now let's apply the same pressure to the concept of global citizenship. If we accept the externalized costs of our consumption, do we have a moral obligation to engage in ethical philanthropy?
That's a serious debate. We'll discuss effective altruism, the difference between charity and philanthropy, and whether every global citizen must contribute to social justice issues in the next segment. Absolutely. Being a global citizen means recognizing that your actions have consequences far beyond your borders. If you have the means, you have a moral imperative to practice ethical philanthropy.
What's the difference between charity and philanthropy? Most people use them interchangeably.
Charity is short-term, immediate relief, like donating money for disaster relief. Philanthropy is long-term, strategic investment, aimed at solving the root cause of a problem, like funding education or policy change. We need more philanthropy.
But people who donate often suffer from analysis paralysis. They want to help, but they don't know which cause is most effective. That's where the movement for effective altruism comes in, correct?
Exactly. Effective altruism is a philosophy that applies evidence and reason to determine the best ways to benefit others. It pushes people to ask, where can my dollar do the most good? It's about maximizing impact.
But is it fair to say every global citizen has a moral imperative to donate money? Not everyone can afford to give financially. Their contribution might be through activism or simply ethical consumption.
I accept that is not only about wealth transfer. It's also about devoting your time, talent, or voice to address issues of social justice, like advocating for better labor laws in other countries. That's an equally vital form of contribution.
I agree. The goal is to move beyond mere slacktivism, the passive support of a cause on social media, and toward genuine, measurable impact. We need intentionality in our giving.
And the best way to develop that intentionality is through education. By understanding the complexity of social justice issues, we can move from being passive observers to active participants. We need to close the empathy gap.
That's a profound thought. Now that we've discussed the ethics of consumption and contribution, let's pivot to the ethics of personal health. Next, we are going to dive into the massive debate over wellness culture. Is it genuine self-care, or is it just another form of toxic productivity?
That's a clash of titans. We'll expose the hidden costs of wellness influencers, the pressure of perfectionism, and whether or not genuine self-care can truly be monetized.
I agree. The goal is to move beyond mere slacktivism. Now that we've discussed the ethics of consumption and contribution, let's pivot to the ethics of personal health. Next, we are going to dive into the massive debate over wellness culture. Is it genuine self-care, or is it just another form of toxic productivity?
That's a clash of titans. We'll expose the hidden costs of wellness influencers, the pressure of perfectionism, and whether or not genuine self-care can truly be monetized. I think the entire wellness culture movement has been co-opted. Genuine self-care is essential for preventing burnout,
But what we see online is often just another expectation of perfectionism, forcing us to buy things to feel better.
Toxic productivity. That's the perfect term. It describes the obsession with maximizing output to the detriment of our mental and physical health. But when it blends with wellness culture, it creates the expectation that rest must be productive too.
Exactly. Instead of genuinely resting, people feel they must be performing self-care, tracking their sleep, drinking specific smoothies, and following complex morning routines. It turns emotional labor into a quantifiable metric.
Emotional labor? That sounds like a heavy psychological concept. How does that apply to daily life and self-care?
Emotional labor is the process of managing feelings and expressions to fulfill the emotional requirements of a job or social role. When you force yourself to perform happiness or perform a perfect routine for social media, that is a form of exhausting, unpaid emotional labor.
That's a profound observation. The pressure from wellness influencers selling the dream of perfectionism means we're trading one type of burnout from work for another type of burnout from optimizing our life.
The key to genuine self-care is simplicity and authenticity. It should be about truly listening to your body, not following a rigid plan. Sometimes self-care is just sitting quietly and doing absolutely nothing.
That is the pragmatic, sustainable approach. Now let's pivot our final debate to the ethics of access. In a world increasingly driven by digital services, is access to the internet a fundamental human right, or is it a luxury that must be earned?
That's the ultimate ethical dilemma. We'll discuss digital equity, the concept of information asymmetry, and whether or not we are creating a permanent digital divide in the final, most crucial segment.
That is the pragmatic, sustainable approach. Now let's pivot our final debate to the ethics of access. In a world increasingly driven by digital services, is access to the internet a fundamental human right, or is it a luxury that must be earned?
That's the ultimate ethical dilemma. We'll discuss digital equity, the concept of information asymmetry, and whether or not we are creating a permanent digital divide in the final, most crucial segment. In the 21st century, the internet is not a luxury. It is a fundamental right. All education, job applications, and essential government services are now online. Without access, you are permanently excluded from digital equity.
Fundamental right? Who pays for it? While the ethical argument is strong, the infrastructure is expensive. We have to be realistic about the financial viability of universal access.
The cost of not providing access is far greater. Lack of access creates a digital divide, the gap between those who have digital access and those who don't. This leads to information asymmetry.
Information asymmetry? That sounds like a technical term. How does it hurt the common person?
Information asymmetry is when one party has more or better information than the other. If you lack internet access, you have less information about job opportunities, healthcare, or financial products, putting you at a huge disadvantage.
So the solution isn't just installing wires, it's about making sure the access is also affordable. Some solutions even propose connecting the concept of universal basic income, UBI, to subsidized internet access, viewing it as a core utility.
That's an excellent interdisciplinary approach. Whether through UBI or government subsidy, guaranteeing digital equity is the only way to ensure that technology is an equalizer, not a tool for further social justice disparity.
That brings us back to our core theme, intentionality. We must be intentional about our consumption, our contributions, and ensuring everyone has access to the tools needed for self-actualization.
It's all connected. The ethical sourcing of clothes, the necessity of digital equity, and the fight against toxic productivity. We need to live ethically and sustainably.
And that concludes our deep dive into the ethics of convenience with our hosts, Noah and Jade.
Thank you so much for joining us on Fluent Talk.
We hope you gained valuable vocabulary on everything from externalized costs to digital sovereignty. Which side of the fast fashion debate did you agree with? Let us know in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe to English Easy. We promise that a new high-value conversation will be posted every single day at 6 a.m. Never miss your chance to practice your English fluency.
Goodbye for now.